Alright friends, welcome back to my corner of the internet. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that is really important to me, and I've wanted to make a video about it for a while, but I kept putting it off because I didn't want to do it wrong. So today, we are going to be addressing my experience as a queer Christian. Things have gone to poo in the government, really for everybody, but today we're going to talk about queer people because, as you no doubt know, a lot of people use religion to justify oppression of queer people. A lot of it roots in selfishness, but I think faith is also a large part of it. So today we're going to be talking about queerness and religion. I recently was invited to speak on a panel about my music and my experience as a queer Christian, so I thought that now would be the perfect time to talk about it. So growing up, my dad was Sikh and my mom was Christian, and so I was raised Christian. We went to church like a decent amount, but we weren't, those families that like go to church 3 times a week and stuff like that. But religion was always a pretty big part of my childhood. Most of my extended family is pretty religious. I listened to a lot of worship music and like Christian rock growing up. I didn't even start listening to like pop music until probably about halfway through high school. And then I discovered the Blank Space music video and watched that on repeat, and that's why I'm gay now. That was a joke. But I always kind of knew that I was different, or I was other than the rest of my peers, and my faith made me feel less alone in that. So religion became a super big part of my life. When I first started middle school, I noticed that I didn't really have much in common with any of my friends who were boys anymore, and I didn't really have much in common with the girls either, and so I felt very alone. And so I started going to this after-school Christian theater program, and I made so many good friends there. I'm still friends with a few of them, but I would spend all my weekends with those people, and I felt like I had a group of friends there that I didn't have during the day at school. So needless to say, religion was a major part of my life by the time I hit middle school. But as I got older, I started to see some holes in their philosophies. There's a musician called Semler. If you haven't listened to them, you really should. They have really good music. They just put out a new album that I want to post a reaction video to as well. They make really good music about being queer and Christian and growing up in the church. And they have a lyric that says there's courage in doubt. And that really resonated with me because I think queer Christians have stronger faith than anybody because we grew up constantly questioning everything. We had to put in the work to do the extra research to find out, are we okay? Is this okay? I read the Bible cover to cover several times before I even graduated high school. So anyway, back to the story. I feel like it took me a while to figure out that I was gay, but I was pretty certain by the time I was 16. And I was like, okay, how do I reckon this with my faith? Because I'm really fortunate to have supportive and progressive parents, but a lot of the other religious influences in my life were not very open and accepting. And so I started to do some research. I did more of an in-depth study of the Bible and the 3 verses used to justify homophobia. I found this book called God and the Gay Christian by Matthew Vines, which breaks down those 3 sections of the Bible, and it goes back to the original Greek words that were used in the original translation before English translations kind of messed things around a little bit. And while I think that mistranslations and Western homophobia are a large influence on why the Bible is interpreted in the way that it is, I think that it can really be boiled down to a few verses in Matthew 7:15-20, which I'm just going to read for you. Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruit you will recognize them. It goes on to say, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into fire. Thus, by their fruit you will recognize them. So one of the ways that we can determine what is true Christianity, or what is the intent, what are we supposed to do, is by asking ourselves, does this action or this rule produce good fruit or bad fruit? How is a loving family with 2 moms bad fruit? How is a person that was assigned male at birth living their truth as a woman bad fruit? But what I think is bad fruit is telling somebody that the way God made them, that something about themselves that they can't change is inherently sinful, shoving them further into the closet, driving people to self-harm and suicide, believing that they'll never be satisfied in their life or relationships and that they're hopeless. I think it's an example of bad fruit that one of my childhood best friends went to a religious echo chamber of a school, forced himself back into the closet, living a heterosexual relationship that I don't think is ever going to satisfy them, believing that they're inherent feelings are evil or unnatural, learning to hate that part of yourself. I think that is bad fruit. Tell me what good can come from that. So anyway, when I moved to Boston for college, I started going to this church that I really liked. I was by far the youngest person there. Basically, the vast majority of the people there were elderly. They would show up at climate marches, Pride, the Women's March, stuff like that. And it really gave me hope to see a full Christian community that was involved in these things, that aligned with the things that I had come to learn produce good fruit. I had felt like growing up, progressive Christians were always like few and far between. They were kind of a rare breed, much less I'd never found like a community of them. The way I see it is, if you're a church and you're not shouting from the rooftops, queer people are fearfully and wonderfully made, queer people are welcome here, you are celebrated here, you're not doing enough. Because I think so many churches and Christians say everyone is welcome here, you know, love the sinner, hate the sin. Because yeah, they might let a queer person through the door, they might take a queer person's tithes, but are they going to stand up there and marry two men? Or are they going to fundraise somebody's gender affirming surgery the way they might or should rather crowdfund for somebody's cancer treatment? I think that that's kind of an example of how homophobia in the church is changing, because it's not as outward, it's a little more insidious, it's a little more hidden. So many Christians are the kind of people that lead with love and will be kind to gay people's faces, but at the end of the day, they believe that they're sinful. They believe they're living a sinful life because they're queer, and they believe they need to be straightened out. On the other hand, I do believe that a lot of Christians are doing what they deep down believe is right, but they just lack the critical thinking or haven't done the research that we as queer people have to understand the Bible, to take on the nuances of what we're meant to believe. Because like I said, queer people have done the work for their faith. If you're somebody that grows up questioning everything and you find those answers, of course your faith is going to be stronger, as opposed to if you just go with what your pastor says or take things at surface level. So if you're a Christian, if you're a religious person, I beg you to do the work. Don't just take the words as they are. Question things, analyze things, use that critical thinking brain, because I know you can. If you're a queer religious person, I think you should walk away from this video knowing that you are not alone. There is community there for you, even if it's not in person. There are communities for you online. There are people like us. Music has always been a source of comfort for me. Artists like Trey, Pearson, Semler, Spencer LaJoy, Flamey Grant, they're all queer Christian musicians. Listen to their music. Seek out new perspectives, because you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Your queerness is not a sin, and that's something you gotta learn to love, because people are gonna tell you it is, and they're gonna act like they know. It's hard to be a queer Christian because you constantly have to keep these arguments, these defenses on hand. But if you put in the work, you'll find that queerness is not a sin. Anyway, I know this was more of a serious video, but thank you guys so much for watching. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments. And to all my LGBT pluses, you are loved, you are special. I'll see you next week with a new video. God bless. And you gotta finish that heart.